Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at my new to me SIG 556 SWAT. And before we get this video started, as always, I wanted to give a huge shout out to this video's sponsor, which is, of course, Seal One. Seal One makes a wide variety of firearms cleaning and maintenance supplies. They have been supporting this channel for a very long time now, and I love the folks over at Seal One. They make great products. Before our partnership, I have been using them as pretty much my sole cleaning supplies for the past few years. It's bio-based, it's non-toxic, it smells great, kind of like a minty, old school bubble gum. I don't even know, but it is pretty solid. It comes in a paste, liquid, and aerosol form, and nowadays in the cold months here in Pennsylvania, they also have a sub-zero version, so it's not going to choke your gun up in crazy low temperatures. They're offering you guys a 25% off discount code just for watching this video. So all you have to do in the discount code section on their website is type in FF-25 at checkout. That's FF-25, and it's going to save you 25% off of your order. What an interesting rifle. This rifle, my friends, is another prime example of gun shop fate. I was looking at PE90s and Swiss 550s, or essentially one and the same, seeing the prices that those were at, and I just could not justify it. They are absolutely insanely expensive at $5,000, sometimes even more, depending on the variation. And again, although those rifles are incredible, they're just not worth that type of money for me. So I let that dream go, and then shortly after, the gun shop fate strikes again, and a good friend of mine managing the shop that I work at part-time said, "Hey man, check this out. I know you were just looking at those Swiss guns. Look what we got in." And it is, of course, the SIG 556. Now, although not as cool as a PE90, this is actually attainable, and it is relatively affordable comparatively, and you're still getting essentially the same system. Yes, I'm coping, but it's okay. It is what it is. This is the SIG 556 SWAT variation. Essentially, it's just the integrated quad rail system that SIG put on it from the factory. So any 556 that has the quad rail that's marked SIG on the other side is going to be a SWAT model. Now, it gets incredibly confusing trying to figure out all of the different models when it comes to the SIG 556s, and the prices are all over the place. Now, this one has a few things that make it a little bit on the less desirable side. One of those things being that it is the fixed stock version of the 556. Now, a lot of my buddies were looking at it, they're like, "Hey man, you should go with the folder on that." And I originally looked at this, I'm like, maybe I could get some sort of folding adapter. Unfortunately, with these SIG guns, although the lower is not the serialized part, actually the receiver is the top portion like an HK, you cannot just simply put a folding adapter on here. Although you can, it would essentially be a folding adapter for any other AR style platform. Now, I've seen some people use Galil stocks and other things that look pretty good, but I just decided to just kind of accept it and rock it how it is. Now, it originally would have come with a Magpul CTR stock. This is just a standard MOE stock. All I had was OD green, so it just kind of worked, and it is what it is. But also, what makes this slightly less desirable to folks is it does not have the SIG diopter rear sight. I couldn't find any pictures online of what this little flip-up sight looked like. This is what the flip-up sight looks like, and I was actually running that as my primary sight at the range today. It is pretty laughable. There's really not much going on here. Kind of reminds me like a Tavor sight or something like that. And then the front sight on this model is really nothing to write home about. It is very thick. It does not come to any sort of a point up at the top for really nice pinpoint accuracy. It's just kind of bare bones and basic. And even though those things are very present on this gun, I felt personally like it was still a great deal at a great price point. And honestly, the more I ran this thing at the range, the more impressed I was. It is a very, very good shooting rifle. And a lot of folks hate on the SIG 5.56 series because everyone just wanted a SIG 550. That is kind of what everyone was looking for, a 551, 552. Like a lot of these companies that just can't understand people want a one-to-one clone of an original, SIG decided to kind of modernize it, and the Gen 1 variation was pretty rough looking. The fore end up here was rough. This, you got to remember, this was coming out at a time like 2009, 2010, where pretty much everything high speed was about as goober as it could possibly get, and the SIG 5.56 kind of fell victim to that. But I personally think the SWAT series is a good looking rifle, especially the 16-inch variation here. The SWAT had a longer fore end and it allowed for a more normal looking barrel. It wasn't like the XIs that had this handguard stopped way back here and a whole lot of barrel left. The ones with the side folding factory receivers look awesome. That's just my personal opinion. You can still get a really good value out there searching around for these. The only thing that I would really change on this setup is I would really try to find something with a diopter rear sight. Although MFI does offer a replacement Picatinny rail with a diopter rear, those are about $275, so I don't know that I'll be going with that. I might not. A lot of folks say those MFI sights are kind of just okay, so I would love it if you could let me know down in the comment section what you guys think. As you can see, the SIG 5.56 changed things a little bit because you don't have your incredibly cool but incredibly expensive Rock and Lock 550 mags. You have a standard AR-15 magwell. Now, coincidentally, I just picked up a bunch of these new translucent Magpul mags, and I gotta say, I at first was like, it's kind of dumb that they did that, like who wants that? And then the more guns that I put them in, the more I'm like, man, that passes the vibe check quite a bit. And in this SIG 5.56, it gives it kind of that old school Swiss translucent mag look, and it really works with this gun. Unfortunately, they don't rock and click into place and have that little coupler action going on, but it's still a pretty cool mag. Now, again, as I had mentioned, I threw the MOE stock on there, and then I also have a GG&G pick rail vert grip up at the front with a little bit of goon tape, of course. This thing was in great shape, but as you can see through the ejection port there, it has been shot. This thing has probably, it's hard to gauge exactly how many rounds through it, but it was pretty dirty, pretty caked up on the inside, and I cleaned it all out and of course had zero reliability issues at the range. This thing ran like a top with no concerns whatsoever on either gas setting. The only ammo that I had at my disposal was about 200 rounds of lacquered Old Wolf 223 that this, again, chugged through no problems. If you're not familiar with the SIG series of rifles, the 5.5, if you will, series, it is essentially the Swiss watch version of an AK. So you have a very AK-like bolt in here, and it really should have zero issues running any sort of steel case. And of course, I had none of those issues at the range. Now, I did also run a variety of magazines from Lancers to Magpuls, Gen 1s, Gen 2s, the new translucent ones, old school Stanag mags that are super old with not even an anti-tilt follower in them, and also new Duramags, and this thing had absolutely zero issues whatsoever. I know a lot of folks have seen some of these lowers that are polymer. This one in particular is, of course, aluminum. All the SWAT models that I am aware of have an aluminum lower portion of the receiver, if you will, even though this is technically not the receiver. These are unobtainium nowadays, so although they are not the serialized part, and you could, in theory, find another one that was side folding and swap them out, they are nearly impossible to find at the time of making this video. I could not find them anywhere, so just be aware of that. That is a little bit frustrating because I would love to get a side folding receiver on this in the future. You do also still have your stock lockup here on the right side of the factory quad rail for that side folding receiver as well. So that's kind of nice that SIG kind of left that there. But the only ones that I was able to find on Gunbroker were the fixed stock receivers because, of course, no one really wants those these days. I've even seen people buying a completely new rifle with the side folding stock adapter that is in really rough shape and then swapping the lowers and reselling the rifle to make the money back. I'm not about to be going that far. I did run into a little bit of a hard decision point, an issue on optics and kind of accessories for this, and I really thought a 512 would look sweet up here, and it kind of did. I threw it on. Again, it looked great, but the problem comes into play with this charging handle that's angled upwards. So it is reciprocating, but if you need to manipulate this for whatever reason, it is real close to pretty much any optic that you're gonna have in the area that you want to have it. So I'm gonna like mess around still. If you guys have a SIG 556, let me know what optics you run down in the comments below, because I'm trying to get some recommendations. It's just really weird with the height. These are not standard AR height sights, so it's a little lower than normal, and anything that's chunky is gonna really rub into your finger and almost slice you open if you need to manipulate this charging handle. Now, of course, the 556 series does have a really nice bolt catch / release that is really easy to get to. You actually push up slightly on it rather than in, and you can manipulate that almost always. But on your first mag, if you're on an empty chamber, you're gonna have to manipulate that charging handle, and I just didn't want to deal with slashing my finger open at the range. So I'm still trying to figure out the optics situation. It came with these super 2010 crappy rubber rail scales up here that I did promptly take off, but again, you can use those if you want. It is relatively sharp, I will admit, for a standard pick rail, but I didn't feel that those were necessary. The rifle ran great no matter the gas setting that I was on, and I really didn't notice a huge difference in swapping that gas setting. So I don't know, I'm sure maybe if you were running it suppressed, you might notice more. And I do know there are replacement gas cups out here that offer, I think, 6 or 9 different positions if you wanted more positions available than 2. It does have a 16-inch cold hammer forged barrel, and this funky muzzle device up in the front. This, from everything that I could see, is actually an AAC style muzzle device that is a little bit interesting. SIG made this AAC style device. From everything that I've read, they said they made it for an M4 2000. I actually own an M4 2000 with the original 51 tooth mount in the back, and that absolutely does not work for this. It threads on, the coarse thread is proper, but it does not lock into their teeth here. So it might be for another AAC device. Regardless, AAC put out a statement shortly after this rifle release that said to not use this device with any of their AAC cans, as it would not work properly and lock into place and would cause a baffle strike. So it seems that SIG kind of had one of their employees with an AAC can just like rolling around, and they kind of just like jimmied something up and threw it on the rifle, and here we go. So it is a cool looking device with an interesting history, but do not use that on any of your cans, and you're gonna wanna swap that out if you wanna run this rifle suppressed. Has almost like an FN, FAL style grip with a little bit of a change to it. I just like it quite a bit. This is, of course, almost exact to the original 550 series, and I have seen some folks swap them out. I don't know where these people are finding Swiss 550 parts, because that stuff is unbelievably difficult to find. but I'm sure you could find parts kits like somewhere out there. As for the total shootability, I thought the trigger was surprisingly good and weird all at the same time. So the biggest issue that I ran into with the trigger was this strange ability to overshoot the reset. So if we get our brake here, it's a little spongy, but not bad. We got a nice brake, and if you hold it just right, you got a crazy short reset right there, and then your brake again. But you have a lot of like added space there. And what I noticed is if you pull too far back and you don't hit right at that sweet spot, you had like a little bit of a hiccup. So it was kind of interesting. There were times where it was crazy fast and other times where I was having hiccups and my trigger finger was getting like overly tired because I was kind of like exerting a lot on this weird extra sponge in the back that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't need to be there. So you kind of have to like stay right in this perfect little zone. And if you do, it's a very fast trigger. But again, it takes a lot of practice, a lot of learning to get that right. I was very happy to kind of satisfy that itch of wanting a Swiss gun and coping with an American-made gun. I don't personally think that these rifles deserve the hate that they get from the American market. No, it is not a Swiss gun by any means, but I think it pays a lot of homage to the Swiss setup. And if you're looking to not break the bank and have one that you can just rip up with 200 rounds of steel and not really care that you're throwing it around or whatever, and you want a shooter, this absolutely can be that rifle for you. So I'm gonna kit it out, see how I like it more and more, maybe run it in a competition or two and kind of go from there. Very easy to take apart, very easy to clean. It's just a great all-around rifle at not a terrible price point. You can usually find these anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800, which is doable. It's not terribly cheap, but it's doable. This one was even better of a price than that, so I just couldn't pass it up. If you guys have any other questions about this rifle, please let me know down in the comment section below. While you're down there, head up to the description for the ways to support the channel, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.